Red Football Ltd. It's Manchester United's secret weapon against PSR. On paper, they lost £130 million last season. Yet somehow, in the books that really matter, the loss was less than a third of that. And it all comes down to a company most of us have never heard of, Red Football Ltd. And if you understand what it is, you'll understand exactly how United can look broke and still spend big. Today we're diving deeper into football regulation and the mechanics of United and PSR. By the end, you'll see exactly how United can spend big at the same time as almost going broke. I'm Kevin. With over 15 years in finance and compliance, I'm here to break down the economics of football and how money, rules, and power really run the game. Let's get into it. So back in March, Sir Jim Ratcliffe sat down with Gary Neville and said if Man United didn't cut costs, the club could have gone bust by Christmas.
Manchester United would have run out of money at the end of this year. November this year, the club runs out of cash.
Do you realise how...
That's sort of quite a big...
But do you realise how bad that is to hear? This is the richest football club in the world when it comes to revenue.
Yeah.
But because of...
Top three. Three of us up there.
Top three in the world.
Yeah.
Strong words, especially for a club with such history and one of the biggest fan bases and commercial revenues in world football. At PLC level, that's the New York listed parent company, United recorded a pre-tax loss of £130 million in just the one season alone. Over the previous 3-year period, United's combined pre-tax losses came to just over $300 million, and that's over 3 times allowed under PSR. So on paper, the club looked in trouble. And yet, here we are. United have gone big in the transfer market again this summer. But how is this really possible? So to understand why United can spend big at the same time as almost going broke, we need to talk about how PSR really works. So quickly, PSR was introduced back in 2015 to stop clubs overspending and running into a financial crisis. The rule is simple on the surface. Over any 3-year period, your combined losses before tax can't be more than £105 million. Go over that and you risk fines, transfer bans, and even points deductions. Stay below and you're fine. Some costs, however, are completely exempt from the PSR calculation. So that's the women's football team, your youth academy, community projects, or infrastructure like training ground or stadium upgrades. Spending money on these doesn't count towards your PSR losses at all. So when United announces the upgraded Carrington training ground for over $50 million, it's big news. But for PSR, it's invisible. So let's talk about transfers. For PSR purposes, what matters is accounting. But for actual spending, what matters is cash. So let's look at how these differ using the 4 signings United have made this summer. So not counting any potential add-ons, Brian Mbeumo was bought for $65 million, Mateus Cunha arrived for a reported $62.5 million, Benjamin Šeško came in for around $70 million, and on the last day of the window, Senne Lammens came in for around $18 million. That's a total of around £220 million. And they all signed 5-year contracts. And from a PSR perspective, the contract length plays a big role. Let's look at Šeško in football accounting terms. So Šeško for $70 million on a 5-year deal doesn't mean all of it counts as a PSR expense in year 1. The cost is spread evenly across the contract period. So that's $14 million per year for 5 years. This is called amortization and is an accounting rule. It makes long-term deals look cheaper on your books in the short term because footballers are assets expected to perform for longer than the first year. So that's why the cost can be spread out over a longer period, which is usually the contract period. That's the accounting piece for PSR. For what actually matters though, which is obviously the hard cash leaving your bank account, there's a second piece as well. Installment payments. So in reality, clubs almost never pay the full transfer fee up front. So that same 70 million might be paid as 25 million today, 25 million next year, and 20 million the year after. This means the cash leaving the club is much smaller than the reported transfer fee suggests. And again, this doesn't affect PSR, so that 14 million a year would be the number for that. So when you hear that 200 million is being spent, the PSR reality might be closer to 50 million a season, while actual cash can be anywhere from 0 to hundreds of millions. And still, United risk running out of cash. Now here's where things get really interesting. Manchester United PLC, the one listed in New York, isn't actually the entity that submits accounts to Premier League for PSR. That job belongs to the UK registered subsidiary called Red Football Ltd. It's been around since 2005, just before the Glazers takeover. And last season, the difference between the PLC accounts and Red Football's accounts were massive. At PLC level, Man United's pre-tax loss in 23-24 season was around 130 million. By comparison, Red Football posted a loss of 36 million pounds. That's almost a 100 million gap. But how is that possible? Because certain costs, like the 47.8 million in exceptional items from Ratcliffe's investment, were booked at PLC level. But they didn't appear in Red Football's accounts. In Red Football's version, exceptional items were just 4.5 million pounds, mostly manager departure payments. That 100 million was the difference between you're in breach and you're fine. And remember, the Premier League uses Red Football's figures for PSR. Here's another example. Finance costs, basically the interest on United's debt, were a little over 61 million pounds in the PLC accounts. But in Red Football, it was just 21 million pounds. And not only that, some of those interest costs were shifted to another company in the group, Red Football Joint Venture Limited. That company even paid interest to Red Football Limited, creating 25 million pounds of income in Red Football Limited's books. That's some clever accounting, and all perfectly allowed though, and at PLC level it all cancels out. But for PSR, the smaller loss at Red Football is what matters. So even with all these shifts, United still reported a combined 3-year loss of around 200 million under Red Football. That's obviously above the 105 million cap, but once you strip out the exemptions like academy, women's football, community, and infrastructure, United dropped back inside the rules. In fact, analysts reckon that United could lose around 140 million this season alone and still be compliant with PSR. That's why, despite the scary headlines, United have room to spend. Not unlimited room though, but enough to sign players this summer without triggering automatic PSR breach. And it's not just United. Chelsea have played the same game. When a club sold in 2022, nearly 50 million in director payments were booked in the parent company, not Chelsea FC Limited, which is the company used for PSR purposes. That kept them off Chelsea's PSR books. And they've also restructured their women's team into a separate entity, changing how costs are treated. It's obviously a different club, but it has the same principle. Move costs around the group to protect its PSR position. But let's not sugarcoat it. United still have problems. They got over 300 million in outstanding transfer payments from past deals. Ratcliffe admitted that they had to write a check for 89 million this summer just to cover all transfers. So cash is tight, and while PSR isn't about cash, it's about accounting, eventually the bills have to be paid. So if United miss out on the Champions League for multiple years, the revenue gap will show. And not even Red Football's clever accounting will fix that. So here's the bottom line. Manchester United look broke in one set of books, but thanks to Red Football, they look fine in another. And it's the second set of books that the Premier League uses for PSR. That's how United keeps spending big, even with losses mounting at PLC level. Because football isn't just about goals, it's about rules. And sometimes the rules off the pitch matters more than the rules on it. I'm Kevin. Thanks.